Miles Feiner is an atheist from New York City who runs a podcast to preach his messages. He believes that everything in life happens for a reason and that there is no supernatural force governing it. The podcasts have made him somewhat popular among the atheist community, but at the same time he has also gained some haters. Despite this, Miles is completely carefree and doesn't miss an opportunity to detest God every chance he gets. He usually invites religious guests in his podcast and makes fun of their beliefs and ideologies due to regular Bill Nye. But one day, something very strange happens as Miles is walking home. He gets a friend request on Facebook from an account named God. Miles obviously thinks someone is messing around with him, so he simply declines the request and continues on his way. However, the request keeps popping up again and again, despite Miles rejecting it every single time. Surprisingly, the profile picture is a small cloud, which is the same exact one that Miles can see from his doorstep. Fed up with the continuous notifications, he finally accepts the request, and as soon as he does so, God sends him a friend suggestion of someone named John Dove. Just then, a guy bumps into him and profusely starts apologizing. Miles stares at him closely and realizes that the person is none other than John Dove, the same guy who God has suggested to add on Facebook. Thinking that someone is pranking him, Miles decides to follow John and confront him. Soon he reaches the subway where a lot of passengers are present. The train is about to arrive, and seeing John very anxious, Miles realizes that he is about to commit the unthinkable. Fortunately, before anything bad can happen, Miles pulls him and saves his life. John, who now seems to have turned a corner, thanks Miles for changing his perception and departs that night. Completely confused, Miles wonders about why someone would prank him like this. He searches John Dove on Facebook, but doesn't find much information on him. He then goes through God's account and finds that he or she likes nature right. Then God sends him another friend suggestion, a beautiful girl named Cara Bloom. Later, at midnight, Miles suddenly wakes up to loud music playing in his room. It turns out that someone has hacked into his computer and deleted his important presentations about atheism. Moreover, the music speaker, thermostat, lights and other equipment in the house have also been tampered with. One thing is clear, someone hates Miles. Following this, we are introduced to Cara Bloom, an aspiring journalist who works at a big firm. She used to be the top performer there, but for some weeks her performance has been very lackluster. This has landed her in hot water, and now her bosses warned her to submit a good article soon or else she will be fired shortly after an angry Miles barges newer office and confronts her for whatever shenanigans she and her friends are up to. He also tells her to stop hacking into his computer and messing around with his stuff. However, Cara, who is clearly angry by the sudden intrusion, doesn't understand what he is saying. Miles shows her his phone and explains the whole ordeal. Then the two talk for a while and come to a conclusion that someone is messing with both of them. Miles appears to be very worried by the pranks, but surprisingly Cara finds the story interesting and decides to write an article about it. She also promises to help find the culprit, and as a result, Miles agrees to work together that evening. The two approach Miles' hacker friend Rakesh and request him to find the IP address of the Facebook account God. Rakesh doesn't do favors for his male friends, but when he sees the beautiful Cara, he gets straight to work. Hackers can be simps too. However, after some digging, he learns that the God account is protected by a firewall never seen before. Only a billionaire or an ultra genius is capable of operating such firewalls. Despite this, Rakesh uses all his knowledge, works all night and finally finds the location. God is in Jersey. Guy must love baseball and boardwalks. Wasting no time, Miles and Cara go to the sub-location. It turns out to be a gloomy-looking house that has been put up on sale. The duo scans every room but finds nothing except for a painting of God on the wall. This indicates that whosoever is behind the pranks was expecting Miles to arrive. In the next scene, Cara and Miles return to the latter's home, where Rakesh and his girlfriend are also present. Surprisingly, Miles's computer is operating on its own, as if someone has again hacked it. Soon it stops at one of Miller's family pictures, and when Cara sees it, she becomes upset and walks away. Miles and Drake are confused by why she left, and after some thinking, they realize that Karen knows someone from the picture. The picture is from 20 years ago, when Miles's mother was at the hospital battling cancer. The two unknown people from the picture are doctors, but Miles doesn't know their names. Hence he goes to the only person who might have the answers, his father David. Ironically, David is a priest who gives regular speeches about God. Miles approaches, and the two have a brief argument over their contrasting differences. Nonetheless, he sets his rivalry aside and shows the picture. David recognizes the female doctor as Susan Bloom. Hearing this, Miles realizes that the woman in the picture is none other than Kara's mother. At night, he meets Kara and learns that she's been estranged from her mother for the last 22 years. Susan suddenly laughed and never came back. That's why Kara became emotional when she saw her mother's picture. After so long with this, it finally dawns on Miles that everything is connected. The person named God actually sent him to help Carol reunite with her mom. The following day, he manages to track Susan down and encourages Kara to approach and talk to her. The latter is pretty nervous, but nonetheless she proceeds with it. Susan immediately recognizes her estranged daughter and appears to feel guilty for leaving her. However, the very next second, her other daughter arrives, indicating that she has commenced a new life here. This enrages Kara and she starts running, ignoring Miles is pleased for her to stop. Unfortunately, she ends up getting hit and knocked out by a car. Miles quickly arrives at the scene, but Kara seems to be unconscious. She is not breathing. It appears as if she has met her untimely demise, but just then, a so-called doctor steps out of a nearby car. He is none other than John Dove, the guy Miles saved earlier at the subway. John immediately administers CPR and resuscitates Kara, hence saving her life. Miles is left in utter disbelief at how everyone is connected to one another. The next morning at the hospital, Kara appears to have recovered from the shock. In the meantime, her estranged mother, using visitor and apologizes for leaving her 22 years ago. She then reveals that she never came back because of her abusive husband. She did see her daughter a few times at school, but never had the courage to approach her. Hearing all this, Kara tears up and eventually forgives her mother. In this way, the friend's suggestions from God saved the lives of two different people, Kara and John Dove. Kara is probably still a crappy writer, though a few days passed by and Miles has started to move on from the bizarre incidents that brought him closer to some unknown people. He has also resumed his daily podcast where he still preaches about atheism. One day a big company approaches him and offers to take his podcast to the next level. They offer him a 6-figure contract which will see him becoming rich overnight. Miles is ecstatic with the offer, but the same day God sends him another friend suggestion on Facebook. This time it's a woman named Katie Brooks. However, Miles declines it and goes to meet his new boss. As the two talk about ways to improve the podcast, Miles gets a notification on his phone. God has changed this profile picture. Previously it was a cloud on a sunny day, but now it's a cloud on a sunny day with a rainbow over it. Just kidding. Now it's a picture of scary lightning. At the same time, the weather changes and it starts thundering outside. With this, Miles realizes that God doesn't want him to continue with the podcasts. Hence, on the advice of his best friend Rakesh, he decides to approach the new friend's suggestion, Katie Brooks. Rakesh also helps him find her work address, and after a while both Miles and Kara head there. Katie appears to work at a restaurant in a busy locality which has a lot of people coming in and out. However, she is always late, which often causes a heated confrontation with her boss. Even today, Katie arrives late at work and mentions that she had to take care of her sick son. However, her boss is having none of it. He berates her in front of all the customers and calls her a good-for-nothing woman. Miles, who is hearing all this, feels that Katie is being wrongly treated and comes to her support. He tells the rude boss that he shouldn't be talking to a woman that way and demands that he give her an apology. The boss says sorry but also says you're fired. In this way, Miles ends up getting Katie fired from her job. Later, he catches up with Rakesh and requests him to find Katie's home address so that he can apologize to her. Nothing says sorry like straight-up stalking. Rakesh is skeptical about giving up other people's personal addresses, but when his best friend keeps on insisting that it's for her good, he agrees. Shortly after, Miles reaches Katie's apartment and formally apologizes. He then proceeds to show her some vacancies, which apparently pay well and are located nearby. However, Katie, who is terrified that a random guy has found her address, asks him to go away. Miles explains that he's only doing this for her good, but Katie doesn't listen to any of it. After he dejected, Miles leaves. Katie gets a call from her friend informing her that a vacancy for the position of a waitress has just opened, but in order to apply, she has to come right away or else the position will be occupied by someone else. Katie then asks for at least one day as she can't leave her son alone, but the friend says it's now or never and hangs up. This is when Katie realizes that she has someone who can help. She runs downstairs, smiles, and tells him that there is actually one thing he can do for her. Please stalk her, babysit my son. In the next scene, Katie, her son Nate, and Miles walk to the restaurant where the interview is supposedly taking place. Along the way, Katie reveals that her husband left them 6 years ago for another woman. She also mentions that her son is mute and autistic. This is the reason why she can't leave him alone and was always late for work. Hence, she wants Miles to look after him while she's giving her interview. Miles takes this as the perfect opportunity to make up for his earlier mistake and agrees immediately. Later, they reached the restaurant. When Katie leaves her son in the care of Miles before departing for the interview, 30 minutes passed by, and when she doesn't return, Miles gets bored and tries to strike up a conversation with the little boy. He talks about sports and politics, but as expected, Nate cannot hear any of it. He simply sits there silently, but as he is staring at the window, he notices a guy with a guitar and becomes intrigued. Nate gets up from his seat and leaves the restaurant, prompting Miles to chase after him. Soon they reach a music shop where Nate expresses his desire to learn the piano. Miles knows how to play, so he starts teaching the boys some notes. Soon he gets into the groove and plays a melodious song. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Katie finishes her interview, only to find that her son and the stranger are missing. At the same time, Carol also comes looking for Miles, and together the two ladies start looking for the boys. Fortunately, they find the music shop where Nate and Miles are enjoying the piano. The little boy can even be seen smiling, something which he hasn't done in years. However, despite the clear image that her son is happy, Katie is angry that Miles didn't wait for her at the restaurant. Hence she storms off with her son. Miles is left confused as to what he did wrong. Hence he makes up his mind to stop helping Katie, as no matter how hard he tries, he just keeps making her angry. Since when he's kidnapping a faux pas. The following day, Kara goes to meet Katie and check if she is doing all right, only to find out that little Nate has run away. The boy apparently wandered off a few hours ago without any message. Soon Miles also arrives at the scene and starts looking for Nate along with the others. Katie is especially worried because her son has never ventured out alone. He can't speak, can't read, and doesn't even show any emotion. Hearing this, Miles mentions that Nate does show emotions, referring to the time that they were playing piano. He then hypothesizes that Nate might have gone to the same music shop because music is the only thing that brings him happiness. The assumption turns out to be correct, as when Miles, Katie, and Kara reached the music shop and talked with the owner, they learned that a certain boy matching Nate's description had come to the shop about 30 minutes ago. However, he soon left when the shop was closed. If the shop was closed, how did they talk to the owner? The trio deduces that Nate hasn't gone too far and starts searching all the nearby music shops and rate. Then Miles notices a poster of an orchestra event that is happening nearby. The group rushes there and this time they find the little boy. Surprisingly, he is playing Beautiful Boy by John Lennon. This is the same song as Mother sings for him before sleeping. Despite being non-verbal, the boy has picked up the tune and it seems like he has finally found his passion. His father may have left him at a young age, but John Lennon never did. Ooh, I guess Nate doesn't know about Yoko Ono at last. Miles finally realizes that God is indeed real and stops talking about atheism in his podcasts. He even cancels his 6-figure contract with the large company. With the days passing by, Miles gets several friends' suggestions on Facebook by God, and he helps each of them overcome their problems. However, he is curious to know what God actually looks like. One day, his chance finally comes through a book. He gets to know that God is living in the Himalayas. Miles immediately travels to Nepal and climbs through the dangerous mountains. After days of wandering around, a little monk approaches. Woman says, "Follow me, she's been waiting for you." If this story taught me anything, it's that God spends too much time on social media. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching this video.